To pray, there's no angels where I go, only pieces that are broken, scattered dreams across the floor. I'm home.
Alrighty, hello everybody. This is Kirusho here. And before we do begin, yes, I'm aware this video is being posted early. And a brief explanation for that. I had to come home from work earlier today because of a breathing problem. I've been having it go on all day, and in fact, whenever I recorded the Punisher video, I was actually dealing with it. It wasn't until I got to work that I realized exactly how bad it actually was. Moving around and walking around, I could see dots in my vision. And it just genuinely hurt to breathe. In fact, I'm having a bit of difficulty right now. But I don't want to just leave you guys without some video, so I'm going to be trying to post. If my breathing does sound heavier, then that is why. So, whenever we last left off, we did have one little thing going on. Izuku Midoriya. He has heard about the situation. Apparently, during the forest training camp, Momo had a bit of an incident. She got too hungry and tore apart one of the villains that were attacking. And she is being considered a ghoul, since the body or the autopsy does show signs of being eaten, along with saliva. Now, with that being said, there was also reports of Momo being seen running away. And, yeah, there was just too much evidence pointing at her being a ghoul. UA is currently trying to handle the situation. And her family went underground, the Ayurozu estate being abandoned whenever the CCG do arrive later into the night. Now, it has been 2 days. The hacker, he was able to at least start getting into this. It became a real challenge. He actually was able to get her location in about 2.5, coming really close to that 3-hour mark that the guy gave him. The dude was terrifying. Now, they are getting ready, and Eto gave Midoriya the idea to hold off for a day. In fact, they need to have a plan. They can attack the CCG and get their attention. As soon as Midoriya encounters those villains, then the CCG is going to be all over him. Now, Midoriya, he actually did listen to this, reluctantly. Especially after Momo, she agreed with Eto. Surprise, surprise. Now, Midoriya actually did introduce these two. Awkward. Anyways. Now, with that being said, Midoriya and his own crew are getting ready for an attack. Midoriya is going to go in and attack the villains, and get Bakugo back. Now, he is actually scoping out the situation. He is currently a block away, on a very high building. He's going to go into his Kakuja mode. Or, well, let's see, the best way of putting it. He's going to try something new. And hopefully it does work. He's eaten quite a lot of ghouls, so hopefully this ability isn't wasted. As he's waiting for the signal. Now, as he is waiting, he actually does hear some commotion going on. And he does look a bit closer. Upon closer inspection, he can hear heroes. He can hear people talking. And they've already encountered the villains. And, surprise, surprise, Bakugo's smell disappeared. Midoriya is just thinking that that is not good, as out of the side of the building, All Might bursts through it, immediately flying off in a direction. Midoriya just looking at the hero, and simply thinking, All Might, why was he there? This is bad. Shit, he probably knows where they're going. Midoriya leaping after All Might, running across the rooftops and trying to keep up. Until, down the block, he does see it. The side of a building smashes open, and out steps All for One. Now, with that being said, the signal is given, and quite a few places around the city begin to explode. All Might and All for One are actually surprised by this. They can see all the devastation all around them, and that confuses All for One. He didn't plan that. As his fight with All Might begins, and Bakugo is brought onto the battlefields. Now, All Might and All for One begin their battle. Him trying to blast away All Might and showing off his own weapon, the All Might Killer. And Midoriya does actually see it, thinking that it is impressive. Now, Midoriya, he actually does smell something, and this catches his attention. He smells Bakugo, along with other things. Other people are here. Now, he jumps into action, immediately making his way around the building and finding Bakugo. As soon as she sees him, she almost jumps out at him and yells for him, Midoriya quickly covering her mouth and telling her that they need to get out of here. She needs to just listen to him, her being very confused. This being whenever All Might is defending the civilians against the villain. As soon as Midoriya can see that, he knows that this is not good. Bakugo stating that All Might is going to go over his time limit. That confusing Midoriya. Now, she knows about him. She saw him buffed down once. She didn't say anything, but she did keep it to herself. A lot of other things were going on at the time. So, Midoriya does hear that All Might is going to be out of power, deciding to jump in. As Midoriya reveals his Kaguja. Bakugo just somewhat taking a step backwards, and asking Midoriya exactly where does she go. Now, Class 1A is here at this point, and they're just watching this interaction. They can see that she is interacting with the school. The guy named Izuku Midoriya, right? Hey, shut up. I don't understand what he's doing. Besides, that guy, he's the... Yeah, we get it. He's a ghoul. Not just that, Bakugo apparently knows him. Well, I mean, yeah, but look at their interactions. It's a bit more than just that, right? Now, Midoriya leaps into battle. All for One, he is facing off against All Might, as the two are clashing. All Might fighting for control. As soon as he goes to throw all the power into his left hand, All for One immediately just gets smacked away, and a large pillar of meat is seen directly in front of All Might's face, as it extends, blasting All for One through the side of a building, and further, as Midoriya, he retracts it, burning up his hand and walking forwards. All Might looking to the left and seeing Midoriya, completely in shock and confused. Midoriya simply telling All Might to run. He can handle things from here. Take care of the civilians. What are you doing here? Let alone how, why. The how and why aren't important. What's going on right now is the fact that civilian lives are at stake. Protect the people, All Might. Besides, you're running out of time. All for One coming flying back in, as he's going to attack this ghoul. Now, Midoriya flies forwards, clashing with All for One's quirks. As it is on the news, the one-eyed ghoul is fighting against an unknown villain, and is helping the number one hero. Meanwhile, you do have Eto Yoshimura and the rest of Origiri Tree. They are staging attacks all around the city. These attacks are concentrated and planned, places where civilians won't be at a lot of times. Basically low traffic areas. If a ghoul is sighted in one, the CCG will be deployed. However, if ghouls are sighted all over the city all at once, then this is gonna mean all-out war. The CCG will try and spread themselves out. However, one thing that the Origiri Tree organization did not plan for was the Kagane suits, or the Ataru suits, I believe they were called. Now, every member of the CCG was given one, and they've been improved. In fact, I guess you could call them supercharged. And yeah, tonight is the night of extermination. The CCG cannot wait any longer, as all over Japan they are beginning the extermination mission. They are going to be trying to exterminate every single ghoul in every single city, all at once. They've let a few stay into hiding to let that boil over, I guess you could say. They're more likely to all group up together, since getting food alone would probably be too difficult in some of the higher areas. Now, Eto and a lot of Origiri Tree are actually having a tough fight, as Origiri Tree's surprise attack gets countered by a surprise attack of the CCGs, them being able to mow through a lot of the forces. Every ghoul that was under a class was eliminated swiftly. Now, back over with Midoriya. He is fighting against All for One, the two blasting through multiple buildings, as both of them just keep going, over and over and over again. Midoriya throwing out his left hand and blasting it outwards, immediately smashing it into All for One. All for One just beginning to try and ask exactly why is a ghoul defending humanity. To which Midoriya gives a simple rebuttal. Because he's half human. If he can't protect people that he believes should be protected, then he's nothing more than a monster, just like him. Now, All for One somewhat laughs, saying that a simple monster is a ghoul. In fact, he has known quite a bit of monsters. And the fine doctor he knows had a plan. He created a monster. Now, with that being said, this is whenever they deploy their special projects. Now, they were curious as to what happened if you put a ghoul with a man with a quirk. They saw what ghouls can do against the Nomu. So, they gave a special set of organs to a good friend of theirs, Muscular, as he comes flying off of the rooftop. Now, almost as if on cue, he immediately smashes directly into Midoriya's arm, and goes to grab outwards with his left arm, ripping Midoriya's right one completely off up towards the shoulder blade, before smashing the arm directly into Midoriya's chest, and beginning to try and tear away at him. As he sends Midoriya. Now, Midoriya, he does get back up, immediately getting onto his legs and looking up to see this ghoul. As soon as he sees them, he catches a glimpse of their face, and he can already tell what that man meant by hybridization. The ghoul he's facing has one eye. Along with that, those things wrapped around his arms, they're not kakujas. That's a quirk. Midoriya throwing himself upwards, and immediately throwing his body weight back, dodging Muscular's arm in barely even half of a second. As Muscular just looks up, and Midoriya uses his Ukaku. It's ripping its way out of his back and immediately blasting away at him, and beginning to attack him, along with a scorpion tail coming out. And, well, it immediately begins to wrap around Midoriya's leg, as it forms something like this, similarly, however more or less towards his leg. And Midoriya throws it outwards, trying to kick away at the villain. Muscular immediately just dodging it, bringing his leg up and smashing it upwards towards the air. At which point Midoriya uses his Ukaku, somewhat solidizing it and making it like a pole vault, being able to fling himself backwards into the air, as he uses his ability, the one he's thought about, the ability to use other ghouls' Kagunes, as his arms begin to regrow, and the other Midoriya is beginning to talk, beginning to try and think. They need a plan, don't they? This guy's got a quirk and, well, a Kagune. Does he have a Kakuja? That's the question. I don't know. Let's find out. Midoriya lashing forwards with his hands like this now, as he immediately slashes away directly at the man's face, and tears off the hood, before throwing out his left hand and smashing it directly into Muscular, to which he responds by wrapping the muscle fibers around Midoriya's arm, and beginning to try and attack him. Midoriya simply smirking, as he uses his Okaku once again, and begins to just blast away at Muscular at point blank range, then forming his own Kagune once more. What was it? The waist one. It's beginning by turning into two ginormous centipedes, and slashing away at Muscular, tearing apart parts of his body, and hurting him quite a bit. The centipede then simply grabbing onto him, latching onto him, and throwing him as high as it can into the air. Midoriya blasting away after him. Everyone just watching as the one-eyed ghoul is fighting against an unknown threat, the two going smashing into a very high building. Muscular throwing Midoriya through a couple of walls as Midoriya uppercuts him through a couple of the floors. And he jumps away after him, climbing up through the building throughout the rubble, and dodging it as it tries to fall. Now, there is a nearby building under construction, and Midoriya is trying to think. The CCG uses certain methods, so hopefully his idea is going to work out. If it doesn't, that just means that he's fucked. Now, sorry about that, I had to take a breather for a minute. Now, Midoriya, he's thinking, as he forms the part of the Kakuja, his face being covered once more in the mask, and simply just thinking, as his body begins to slowly increase in size. And well, his entire face is covered in an owl-shaped mask, and the nose is pointed out sharply. Him simply just thinking, the construction site is perfect. If they can get there, he can run a spike through this guy's brain. Hopefully one of those steel rods. The guy is still human. There's no way he could survive that. No ghoul could survive anything like that either. Now, this is whenever he forms more and more of his Kakuja. As he's beginning to feel it, his RC cells are overwhelming him. And each piece of his Kagunes begins to form all around his body. Parts of his legs and his arms beginning to be covered in some sort of armor. Now, Midoriya can tell that it's lightweight, however. This isn't full. He's more than halfway there. As his Kagunes, he uses them, rushing upwards towards Muscular, and punching him as hard as he can. As he actually did feel the muscles in his hands almost tear in half doing so. Punching Muscular clean throughout the side of the building. As Midoriya, he grows out arms. 2 giant arms directly above his other ones. And he shoots himself out like a missile. As he throws his hands out in front of them, and the other giant pair, and stabs directly into Muscular's guts. The 2 flying downwards into the construction yard. As Muscular hits into a steel beam and a steel girder, smashing into it and flying over it, part of his back being broken, as he tumbles down before finally hitting concrete. And Midoriya, he didn't really get in too good of a situation himself. They were building a support beam, and part of the metal was exposed. Muscular sent him flying upwards, and Midoriya, he got jabbed through it. A part of his leg and a part of his arm. And, well, luckily, his throat almost got spiked. However, he was able to move it away, so it's part of the cartilage next to his throat. Right next to his trachea. As he begins to actually move his leg upwards. He uses one of these giant arms and immediately just begins to pull away at the metal, being able to actually rip the bottom piece off before the other 2 hands rip this piece out. Midoriya having to actually pull the piece out from the front of his leg. And, well, his kneecap, that's going to take a minute to heal. As he begins to do the same for his arm, and then pull himself off this piece of metal. Taking a deep breath as he is beginning to heal. Now, with that being said, let us cut back over to the other ghouls. Eto Yoshimura. She's encountered so much shit. The CCG, they were organized. They were plotting this from the beginning. And tonight was their night, as she is put on the run. Now, everyone that Eto was with, they were exterminated and killed. They were just eviscerated. And she's having to run from over 50 CCG detectives, or doves, calling in backup, and simply trying to take off. Anytime she does try to go airborne, hollows are sent into her, and she does have to stay low to the ground. They have plans in place for her, and this isn't going to be easy. Now, someone else was aware. As further down the street, Eto does see someone standing there in the middle, thinking for a second that she can take that person down, then simply go back to fighting. If she's gonna die, she is gonna die standing. As she watches this person immediately just take off the hood and throw the robe to the wind, as they form into an owl, and they rush in her direction. Eto, understanding the situation, thinking for a second that that man has one eye. So, it must be her father. He's come to save the day. He abandoned her once, and he doesn't want to do that again. Oh, how lovely. Her simply slowing down, throwing her hands outwards in front of her, and throwing them backwards. As soon as she does that, she's able to immediately pick apart some members of the CCG that flew past her. Now, she makes quick work of 3 of them, as some of the ghouls from Deku begin to start fighting with her, and hold off a few of these men. Now, they are fighting, and successfully, they take down quite a few of these doves. As soon as they realized that they were going to be overwhelmed, they began to call in more of the air support. However, air support was quickly taken down by Momo's hacker. He hacked into the controls and sabotaged them. That cost extra. However, Momo was good for it, offering him triple the original pay raise. Now, with that being said, that sends the CCG running from this portion of the city. As back over with Midoriya, he's gotten back onto his feet, and he's looking to see Muscular, who is trying to do the same. Midoriya running over and immediately jumping onto his back, beginning by just stabbing his hands into his body, and beginning to tear away at what he can. As Muscular forms his own Kagune, or Kagunes. Midoriya ripped out one of these sacks, thinking that that was it. However, he only ripped out Muscular's Ukaku. He then formed the tail Kagune, and the one on the waist, immediately impaling Midoriya through his gut as Midoriya basically slid upwards throughout the air, before sliding back down onto it, and having to actually throw out his hands, and rip this thing apart. Him being gut wounded and Muscular trying to get back up, with these wounds on his back, before simply throwing his leg outwards and kicking Midoriya as hard as he can. Midoriya being sent flying towards the edge of the building, as he's gut wounded, trying to get back up and fight through the broken ribs, coughing up a bit of blood. The other Midoriya simply telling him to fight. You remember what we stand for, don't you? Do you want me to take over? I've been trying to help you through all of this, so you have to fight. You're right. I think it's time, don't you? Well, I guess you are right. Are you sure, though? Last time we did that, we nearly killed ourselves. Both of us are gonna die anyways, so I don't really see the point. Alright, well, whatever we become, it was nice knowing you, brother. Funny. I almost started liking you. Now, Midoriya looks up at Muscular, as his hair turns back to black. And Midoriya simply smiles, a sinister grin, before he begins to rapidly change. Now, he forms his own version of a owl, as he's around Muscular's size, and he immediately rushes towards him. As soon as Muscular did go to throw out his hands or throw out these Kagunes, whatever they were, Midoriya simply just let himself be impaled throughout the entire body. Muscular confused as Midoriya just rushed forwards throughout the entire damage, shrugging it off, before being able to grab Muscular directly by his human arms, and tearing apart as much as he can, ripping them off and out of the sockets, before simply smashing his head down on Muscular's torso and chomping. Before what the CCG and a large number of the people on the news see is this giant owl eating the head of a villain. Everything below the shoulder blades is intact except for the arms, as what's left of the body simply falls backwards. Before Midoriya simply just looks upwards into the air and begins to actually let out a scream, a screech, something that shows victory. He himself somewhat beginning to go feral, and actually proud of himself. Before he does hear something, turning and flying off in that direction with a mighty leap, as that final leap actually hurt the building, and that side of it begins to start collapsing. It was already in rough shape, however, it could only take so much. Now, Midoriya comes flying into that direction, immediately smashing his hand downwards into All For One. As soon as he does that, All Might, he immediately watches. Midoriya, he is standing there, 3 times his original size. And the look on his face. Teeth are being shown. And he's covered in holes and blood. As Midoriya rushes in, and immediately begins to rip apart All For One, as he chomps down onto his lower body. All For One trying to use the All Might killing weapon and smash into this ghoul, as he tries to smash directly into where this giant eye is, as that area gets smacked away and destroyed. As soon as it does though, Midoriya's body comes leaping out, and there he is, that sadistic look on his face, as he immediately smashes down into All For One, and he rips out the top bone in his shoulder, meaning that All Might killing weapon is nothing more than just dead weight, as he plunges his teeth directly into All For One's throat. And All For One tries to scream. Now, All Might just watches on in horror. He is out of power, and he's out of time, as his arm, it simply shrinks back down. And All Might, he is trying to process this information, watching this boy, Izuku Midoriya, the boy he met so long ago, the boy he considered giving his quirk to. He's nothing more than a monster. However, he does try to do good. However, he doesn't like the way he's doing it. Watching as this boy is ripping All For One apart. He killed him by ripping out his throat and eating what he had. As Midoriya simply just looks over at All Might, before looking up to see Bakugo. The CCG is there. And yikes. They have her in cuffs. Midoriya thinking for a second. He should go after them. Take them down. However, he does get an urgent message. He gets a message from Momo. He's been ignoring everything going on in his ear. He was too focused on something else. And he hears it. He hears that most of their people are dead, and that there are barely even any survivors. Now, Midoriya is forced to retreat whenever Endeavor arrives, and the CCG begin to try and attack him. Now, Midoriya, he simply leapt off and began to fly throughout the air. The CCG helicopters unable to follow him. Any that try to move on their own or simply controlled like toys and end up smashing into each other. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed and have an amazing night. Catch you guys in the next part.